Hello everyone and welcome to SimpliCode's YouTube channel. Kaushal this side and I hope you guys are doing well. Today we'll be taking you through HTML ID and class attributes. We have been through attributes before, but these two attributes in HTML are of utmost importance. In this video, we'll go through what these attributes are and why we need them in HTML. So before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press that bell icon to never miss any updates on programming videos. So without any further delay, let's get started. Before we discuss these two attributes in particular, let's go through the definition of attributes again. Attributes in HTML provide additional information about an element. For example, the height and the width attribute in HTML are used to define the area any particular element will take over on a web page. Today, we'll be discussing two different attributes, the ID and the class attribute. Let's go through them one by one and then we'll see the difference between them. Let's discuss the ID attribute first. This attribute is used to make an element unique. We can't have multiple elements with the same ID in HTML. This attribute is used when we want to make certain changes to a particular element. So let's understand this with the help of an example. What we'll do is we'll create a div tag first and try to make some style changes on it with the help of an ID. So we'll write here inside the body tag. Let's create a division. So we have to use the div tag for that. Now what we need to do is we are going to define a heading inside this div tag. So let's say we are writing over here, this is heading 1. Fine. Now save it and you can see the heading over here on the browser. Now what we are going to do is we are going to give it an ID first. So for giving an ID, we have to move to this div tag because ID is an attribute. So we'll write here ID. Now use some specific name for ID. So we'll write here division 1. Keep one thing in mind that this ID attribute is case sensitive. Fine. Now save it and you can see no change over here on the browser because we are going to use this ID attribute in a CSS part. Now we have a div tag here with an ID as division 1. So we'll use this ID in the CSS part to make some style changes to this particular element. So we'll move to the CSS file. So here's our CSS file. Now what we'll do is we'll write over here hash division 1. Fine. So let's check it out if the ID is fine. So you can see our ID name is division 1 over here. I already told you that ID is case sensitive. Fine. So keep this thing in mind, guys. Now let's make some style changes to this particular element. So we'll write here background color. So let's say the background color is going to be aqua. We are going to define the height. Height is going to be 100 pixels. Then we have the width as well. Width is again going to be, let's say, 200 pixels. And then let's say we are going to use the border property. So border is going to be 2 pixels, solid in nature, and let's say black in color. Fine.
Choose from over 300 in-demand skills and get access to 1,000 plus hours of video content for free. Visit SkillUp by SimpliLearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
So one thing to keep in mind is while using the ID attribute, whenever we use this attribute, we need to use the hash symbol to access it. You can see it over here. We have this hash symbol written before the ID. Now save the program and you can see the change over here on the browser. Let me zoom in a bit for you guys. So I guess this is visible now. Using the ID attribute is easy, right? You guys might be wondering if we can use the div tag here as well in the style sheet. Yes, we can. But what if we have more than one div tag, or we can say div element, present in our HTML document? Using the div tag will change the styling of each div element present on the web page. Till now, in the previous videos, we were using the element name, right? So from now onwards, we are going to use the ID or the class attribute for making style changes to a particular element. So to avoid such circumstances of not accessing all the elements at the same time, we are accessing one single element with the help of ID attribute. Right. I hope you guys got it. So moving ahead, let's discuss the class attribute as well. What we'll do first is we'll add some more division in our HTML document for using the class attribute. So let's move back to our HTML document and we'll write here div Now we are going to create some more division. So we are going to use the h2 tag again, and we'll write here this is heading 2. Fine. So let's copy it from here, and we are going to create some more headings over here. So let's change the heading names in here as well. We have heading 3 and heading 4. Save it, and you can see we have 3 more headings, right? We have heading 2, heading 3, and heading 4. Let's assume a scenario now. We have already styled the first attribute, or we can say the first division, using the ID attribute. The ID is unique for this element, right? So let's say we want to make similar style changes to heading 2 and heading 4. Heading 3, we want it as it is. So we are left with 3 options now. We can either use the ID attribute with each heading, but this will take a lot of time, right? Another thing we can do is we can use the tag name, but there's a problem with that. It will make style changes to all the div elements present on the web page. What we want is, we want similar style changes but in 2 headings only, in heading 2 and heading 4. Heading 3, we want to leave it as it is. Fine. That's where the class attribute comes into play. This attribute is used when we want to make certain changes, or we can say certain styling changes, to a group of elements. By changes, we mean similar changes. To use this class attribute, we need to write here in both the div tags. So we have to write here class. Let's say class name is class 1 for this div tag, and we want to make similar style changes in heading 4 as well, right? So we have to give similar class name here as well. So let's say the class is class 1 for this div tag as well. Now we have 2 elements here with the same class. Let's use this class name in the CSS file now to make style changes in both the elements. So save the HTML part once, move to the CSS file, and to access a class, we use the dot operator, or we can say we use this dot. Fine. Then we have to write the class name. So our class name is class 1, and then inside those curly braces, we'll write a CSS properties. So the difference between ID and class attribute is this. For ID, we are going to use the hash symbol, and for class, we are going to use the dot symbol. Keep this thing in mind, guys. Now we are going to make certain style changes. So we'll write here background color. Background color is, let's say, yellow for this. Fine. So there's a spelling mistake over here. We'll write here yellow. Then we have height. Height, let's keep it same. So we'll write here 100 pixels. Then we have width. Width will also keep the same. We'll write here 200 pixels. And then we have border. So let's change the border property here. We'll keep it 2 pixels. Instead of solid, we are going to write here dashed, and let's say the color is going to be black. Fine. Save the program, and you can see we have similar styles for both the elements now. Heading 2 and heading 4 have the same color, border, and almost everything, right? Heading 3 is as it is. Now, the difference between the ID and class attribute is that an ID is only used to identify one single element in a HTML document. IDs are only used when one element on the page should have a particular style applied to it. However, a class can be used to identify more than one HTML element. I hope you guys must have got an idea by now about what these attributes are and where we should use them. So these attributes are also used in JavaScript as well, along with the getElementById and getElementsByClassName methods. You guys will understand it when you go through the JavaScript part. You can find JavaScript videos here in this channel only. You can go through JavaScript once you are done with HTML and CSS. So I hope you guys got what we learned today. So that's all for this video, guys. See you in the next one where we'll go through HTML layouts. If you enjoyed watching this video, then do give it a thumbs up. If you have any doubts, do let us know in the comments and we'll be happy to help you. Please share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe SimpliCode. Thank you.